We're going to talk about a case that many of you probably know, a mystery that honestly still haunts the world. For nearly 2 decades, the disappearance of Madeleine McCann has been this huge, agonizing question mark, a very, very public one, with just no real answers.
So picture this. It's May 3rd, 2007. A family is on holiday in Portugal. And in what should have been the safest place in the world for her, a 3-year-old girl just vanishes from her bed. And what's so chilling is how it happened. Or, I guess, how it didn't happen. There were no screams. No one heard a thing. No signs of a break-in. Her little brother and sister were sleeping right there in the same room. It's like she was just gone, plucked out of thin air. So what on earth happened to Madeleine McCann? That's the question, isn't it? It's the one that has kicked off this massive global search and, a media frenzy that's never really stopped. So let's get into it. Let's look at what we actually know. Okay, first things first. Before we dive into all the theories and the timeline, we have to remember who this is all about. This is Madeleine McCann, or Maddie, as her family called her. She was almost 4 years old. By all accounts, she was just this bright, super affectionate, adventurous little kid. A daughter, a big sister, a real person at the center of this whole thing. So the McCanns, that's her parents, Kate and Jerry, Maddie, and her younger twin siblings. They were on holiday. They went to this place called Praia de Luz in Portugal, a beautiful resort town. It was supposed to be a totally normal, happy family vacation. All right, let's get into the night it all happened, the night of May 3rd. Every single detail of this evening has been picked apart for years, and you'll see why. This is how a normal vacation dinner turned into an absolute nightmare. So around 8:30, the kids are all put to bed in their apartment. Just before 9, Kate and Gary go to dinner with their friends at a restaurant that was really close, only about 50 meters away. They had this system going, where the group, they were later called the Tapa 7, took turns going back to check on the kids. But you can see the gaps. And somewhere in those gaps, something happened. Because at 10 p.m., Kate goes to check, and that's when she finds out Madeleine isn't there. And the scene she walked into is just burned into everyone's memory. The bedroom door was a little open, the window was open, and Madeleine's bed was empty. She was gone. Well, what happened next was chaos, an immediate, frantic search. But it also kicked off this media explosion, and that intense scrutiny would shape this case in ways nobody could have imagined. I mean, right away, panic just ripped through the resort. Guests, staff, everyone started searching. The Portuguese police were called pretty quickly, and before you knew it, this wasn't just a local incident. This thing went global. It was on every news channel, everywhere. But as the days turned into weeks and there was still no sign of Maddie, something started to shift. The focus, it started to turn on the McCanns themselves. And the scrutiny they faced was, it was intense and honestly pretty unforgiving. And that scrutiny led to a really shocking moment in the investigation. To get what happened next, you gotta understand this one word from Portuguese law, arguido. It's a formal term. It doesn't mean you're guilty, not at all. It basically means you are an official person of interest, a formal suspect. And then, in September 2007, the unthinkable happened. Kate and Jerry McCann, they were named arguidos, her own parents. This sent absolute shockwaves across the globe. Now, it is so important to be clear here. They were never charged with anything, and the following year they were completely cleared of any wrongdoing. So after that roller coaster, the Portuguese investigation, it kind of just stalled out. And the search for answers entered this long, frustrating new chapter. Yeah, the case was basically put in limbo for 3 years. Think about that. The official investigation in Portugal was just shelved. No new leads, not enough evidence, just 3 years of silence for a family desperate for answers. But then, in 2011, things started moving again. A big deal, actually. The UK police launched something called Operation Grange. And this wasn't just a quick look over. No, this was a massive, full-scale review of the entire case. Every piece of evidence,
every interview, all of it. And that brings us closer to today. Because even with all that effort, all those years, all that money, the case is still open. It's still unsolved. But there has been a pretty major new lead recently. Jump to 2020. German police make a huge announcement. They've identified a new main suspect, a guy who was already in prison for other stuff, and, crucially, they knew he was in that same area of Portugal right around the time Maddie disappeared. Now, the German prosecutors have been pretty blunt. They've said publicly that they believe Madeleine is no longer alive. But here's the thing. Despite how sure they seem, they haven't charged anyone. No one has been officially charged with her disappearance. So, after all this time, we are left with the exact same questions we started with. Was this just a random, opportunistic crime? Someone just saw an unlocked door or an open window and took their chance? Or was it something more sinister, something planned out, a targeted abduction? We just don't know. And that not knowing, that's what makes this whole thing so incredibly haunting. The reason this case still gets so much attention is because it's about more than just one missing child. It taps into these huge fears we all have about keeping kids safe. It's a wild example of how powerful the media can be, for good and for bad. And really, at the end of the day, it's about a family that is still looking for answers and a search for justice that has never stopped. Somewhere out there, the truth of what happened in that apartment exists. Someone knows. And until that truth comes out, the name Madeleine McCann is one the world is just never going to forget. The search goes on, and we all continue to watch and hope for answers.